Alright guys, welcome back. In the last video, I said that for the second kit that I was going to be doing two of these at once. The other one didn't really need a whole lot done, but I do need to do a little bit of modification for the seam line removal on the legs, so I just want to show you guys how I'm going about doing that. And also, I did want to add something more to this as well. So I showed you guys in part one that I wanted to have this sword attached onto her right leg, and that was going to kind of be it, but I have the right leg currently disassembled at the moment, so sorry for showing you guys the seam line removal trick, but I did want to add something more onto the other side, or I was just feeling like I wanted to add something more just so that it would be kind of even with the other one, with the first one having the big massive engines on that. This one felt a little bit not having a whole lot on there with just the one kind of this sword attached, so I wanted to add something more, and I also wanted to add something from Bandai if I could sort out something, because on the other one too, it's a mix of Kotobukiya and Bandai parts, and this one too, just for the sake of it, I wanted to make some. I found something that I think is going to be good, and it's this. What is this from? It's the Ballistic Weapons HD custom set here for ballistic weapons. So I want to have this. It's basically just a funnel rack of these three funnels here. I want to have this plugged into the side of the leg here. Now I do want to clean up this a little bit because it's got like the little notches on there from where this is supposed to plug into like the HD Origin Zaku's shield. So I want to just cut those off basically. And I want to have two of the funnels like flying out of here, so it also comes with some open versions of the funnels as well. And so what I want to do is basically make some effect parts to like come up, so it's shooting up, so it looks like two of the funnels are coming out of there they're flying out of there anyway. So the bottom I'm going to leave there. These top two then I need to remove the molded in funnel detail there, because that's just a molded in with this part. Remove that to just turn that into a hole, which I can then put a clear effect part then through to the open funnels here, which I have, which are just separate parts. So shouldn't be too difficult, but let's just first take a look at the seam line modification here we need to make on the leg. And there's no seams we need to worry about here on the front, and the foot is also fine. We can go ahead and remove that. But here on the back of the leg, basically I have a seam line all the way down here through the white parts and the blue parts, and then a seam line all the way down through here as well, except for this little section here where it's just an actual little molded detail in there. So I want to remove this seam line and this seam line here. For the blue parts though, I'm going to turn that into a panel line, so that's going to be easy enough. We can remove this part here on the front first, and down here too on the lower leg, just removing all of these parts. So for creating a panel line along the edge of here, I'm just once again going to be relying on the Danmo tool here. Just to scribe along the edge to turn this into a panel line here. But as for removing the seam line here on these white parts on the thigh and here on the lower leg, it's going to trap in the knee joint there, which I do want to be a different color. And now on the original kit, as you can see here, it's just all in white, but I don't want this to be all one same color. If it all was one color, I could just paint it like that easily. I wouldn't really need to worry too much about it. But the problem is we need to modify this in a way that we can paint this knee part in a separate color and not have to worry about masking. Of course, masking is an option, which I just don't want to worry about that. So it's going to be pretty simple in that we can just glue these two parts together to get rid of the seam line on there. And then for this, when it needs to fit into here, we're just going to turn this into a C joint, which it basically just means we're going to cut out this section here, basically that part there, which I've colored in black, so that this can then just pop up into place instead of actually closing around the knee joint. So let's just go ahead and try that. Oops, okay, so this part broke, and that's too much cut off of there. So what I'm going to have to do is actually, this little piece that broke off too much, I'm going to have to cut a little bit of that and glue part of it back onto there and cut the rest of this. So just be careful when you're cutting this stuff, make sure you're cutting it in a way. I probably shouldn't have tried to just cut out this with a knife, probably should have tried to do it with a little saw or something a little bit gentler tool, but yeah, we'll work around it. To be honest, I'm a little surprised that that broke. This plastic is pretty soft and pretty flexible. So anyway, there it is with that cut out. Like I said, I'll have to glue back in that little part where it looks like it's missing a tooth there, like one of his teeth fell out. But you guys get the idea. I'll glue that part back in just a second, but that is just going to pop into place there like that. So you can see then later, once that part is glued back on there, it won't be a big deal. None of that will really be showing, and then this will fit back onto there fine. It's actually fine without glue, but just to be safe, I'll probably just go ahead and glue that once everything's all painted. But that's what we need to do. We need to do the same thing here for the top part of the leg as well. You can see that is just connected with the same joint, so I just need to cut out a section out of the top of here so that thigh section can also just pop down onto place onto the knee joint there. There's that cut out, didn't break anything this time, that's good. And then like I said, these parts will be glued together. Remove that seam line on there, and then that will just pop into place like that, and there we go. Now as for gluing that other little piece back onto here, it's a pretty clean break, so it should go on there just fine, and then I'll just have to sand that a little bit later just to make sure that there's no nothing residual of the glue. Now, I am gonna still need to be really super careful with that part. It's very possible that later when I actually go to pop the knee joint into there, if I'm not careful, that could very easily break again, but hopefully it should be okay. I'm going to try to make sure that it's got plenty of glue on there, but once that's dry and sanded up, it should be alright. And as for this guy, like I said, the first thing I want to do is just cut off these little tabs here. Not gonna need those. And what I'm going to use for the effect parts is just some Tamiya Clear Soft plastic beams, 3mm round. 3mm because that is what is going to fit into the funnel just like that. So I'll just be able to cut a length of this, and then I can heat it to just shape it to the right shape, but we can worry about that a little bit later. Like I said, I need to make a hole here to plug that in, so we can just use our USA Gundam Store drills. Once again, if you guys missed my recent video where I got these in the mail, USA Gundam Store, these are the same drills as the drill set that I usually use from Mr. Hobby that I love and use all the time, but now you can get a USA Gundam Store branded set where they're basically just in a different color, but those are pretty cool. You can pick these up from USA Gundam Store, of course, and you can use my coupon code there, ZakuAurelius10, save 10% off. So there's this little kind of the little nozzle or the barrel of the funnel, which I kind of need to get through. I could maybe try to just clip that out first. Maybe taking this apart might also make it a little bit easier. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. That makes it slightly easier, I suppose. Kind of strange that they don't make it easier for you to do this. Like having this as a separate piece, like these, each stored funnel as a separate piece, obviously would have been like the easiest way. But since this is just like a small little custom set, I can understand why they didn't, you know, they didn't want to have too many parts in there. They just want to keep it just as these cheap little sets of option weapons and stuff. But I don't know, having these as a separate piece, or just like having them in a way so that it's really easy to do this. Sometimes they do have, not very often, but very rarely, they will like mold parts in a way so that like the modification of them is very clear and obvious, like how to do it and like where to do it. And I'm just now realizing that because I wasn't paying attention, I cut off all 3 barrels, and I meant to keep one there stored, so I'm gonna have to replace one of the barrels in here that I already took out. Oops. Fortunately, the piece that I cut off didn't go flying into infinity. It was just right here on my desk, so I was able to glue that back in, and it should be fine. Okay, whew, crisis averted on that. Here we go. There's those all ready to go now, and then, so yeah, the effect part will just fit into there like that. Now I need to cut this to a proper length, and so I can always cut less. I can always cut it down more later, but I'm just going to cut what I think is probably going to be about right for this. So in this cup, kind of maybe a little bit invisible for you guys to see, but I've got some hot water, and just going to put our clear rod into there. And just after a few seconds, like you don't even need to really wait that long, should be warm enough that you can start to bend that a little bit. Now again, it's a clear rod inside of water, inside of a white cup, so it's gonna be kind of hard to show you guys anything really, but you can just see here, if you give me just a minute, once that starts to soften up, I'll show you guys. Now, as I've demonstrated in past videos too, you can also use a hair dryer, but hot water I think will probably work better for this. I was trying to bend it a little bit in the water. It does work, but once it's out, I mean, you can still bend it a little bit, but it's gonna harden back up pretty fast. This water is not boiling, it's just really super hot. It's just like water from like a clean hot water machine, like for making coffee or something. So we'll surely have to work these some more, but just so you guys get an idea, here is how, for example, those are gonna look. And with the funnels added onto here, just something like that. Pretty cool, pretty simple, pretty easy way to make some effect parts there for your funnels, at least for these type of funnels. Different funnels will come in different sizes and the connections might be different, but this one's pretty easy at least anyway. So that is it for now. It's time to go back to painting. Alright, so at this point all of the base painting is done, and I've also gone ahead and did the gloss coat over everything so that we can move on to some panel lining on the parts and then some decals, and we're almost done. So I'll just give you a look at how some of these parts are looking. For example, missing a few parts here still, obviously, because I need to detail in this little vent section, and this white part that's going to go over the top of that sort of covers that up. So need to just do that first, but you can get an idea of how the legs are looking here. As for the jacket, I did the detail painting on that in silver, and that took a little while to do because that detail is raised on there, and I really honestly kind of wish that I would have just sanded that down and gotten rid of the detail line, because it was a real pain just for getting it ready anyway before the painting. This is the section that took the longest because like the mold line of the resin was like running through this same section as well too, so I had to clean up the mold line while preserving these lines so that they were like raised detail, easy enough to hand paint. So I hand painted those in, and also the skin tone pieces, including like the face parts and the chest parts for both of them, I had to paint and repaint them a couple times, but you can see how those are looking. And so yeah, like this part, for example, like was painted, both the chest parts were painted fine, but then when I was taking off the masking tape, a little bit of paint peeled up just a little bit there, so I was trying to decide to try to touch it up or just repaint it, so I stripped it and repainted it. And then like the face on this one, like I was painting that, and then I wanted to paint a little bit of like rosiness on the cheeks, but that paint just like messed up, so I had to repaint the face. And so when I stripped it and repainted it, the skin tone didn't match the chest pieces that I already had painted, so I had to strip that again and repaint it again to get the skin tone to match, and it's much better now. For the archer kit, here's a look at just how those legs are looking, for example. So again, you're not seeing everything all entirely put together yet, but at this point I'm just ready to go in and start on some of the paneling and detail painting, decals, and then yeah. So as per how I usually like to do it, for all of the dark colored parts I'll be using black, for all of the white colored parts I'll be using gray, and for the yellow parts and red parts I'll be using brown for the panel line accent color. So I'll need to use all three on this, and I'm going to start off with brown first because there's really only a couple parts that are going to need this brown. Basically the feet on the Roadrunner and the feet a little tiny bit maybe there on the Archer as well. Maybe a little bit of the detail here like on the pants, I'll just line that in a little bit.